Hello campus. So let's get right back in. Now, when we continue from display, the display property, display specifies how the container should size itself and handle its children. There are many display values, but we will explore the most common one, flex. I love flex. The flex display offers the ability to arrange the children vertically or horizontally. Let's examine how to use it. First of all, you need to configure, when you want to use the flex, first you need to configure your container as a flex using this. Just set the display to flex. Next, you can set the orientation. By default, is horizontal. You will arrange the children horizontal if you don't specify this property, or you can just go ahead and specify it. So, display flex, flex direction, row. This document that I'm using to teach you is a very comprehensive document. It has everything you need to understand this course very well. I'm just brushing through it real quick so I can make this video on time, but you can just go through the document on the website, the same place you are currently watching this video. Just check under the video, everything here is there. And then you want to set the vertical, display flex direction, column. Before we continue, let's just go and practice that. Let's go ahead and create a new example. Let's call it example 7.html. And let me see if I still have my boilerplate. Oh yeah, I do. So let's paste this here. Right then. So let's go ahead and create a flex bus. div.cont. So let this be our flex bus. Right? Now let's create another div.c. Now this div.c, let's make it like a ball, a red ball. So we come here and we say .c, sorry. Let's define the style tag. Then we say .c. Then we say the width. Let's make the width I don't know, 50 pixels. Let's make the height 50 pixels. I hope you guys remember relative units and absolute units. So if you are very cool with it, I advise you use relative. But if you are not, just stick to pixels. And then border radius, of course. Let's do our border radius. Let's make border radius 30 pixels. Now let's make the background color red. So we have a red ball. And then finally let's give it a margin of 10 pixels. Good. So let's create multiple of these. Let's duplicate it. And then we have cool. So let's close some other tabs and copy the path to this tab. Path is copied. Let's go ahead to our browser. So we have a red ball aligned vertically. The container that we're currently putting it is not yet a flex bus. So we need to go and make that container a flex bus. Just enter .cont, which is representing the container, then set your display to flex. You have to make it a flex bus. So go back and refresh. By default, it's going to be arranged horizontally, just as I said in the document. I said by default it is row, but you want to set the direction, use flex direction. If you want to set the orientation, use flex direction. There are two values for flex direction, row and column. So let's go back to our code and then use the flex direction. Let's use column to set it vertically, and then we have this. There are also other values too. Flex direction. Press Ctrl space to see everything. Column reverse, row reverse. I think you already know what column reverse is. Instead of starting from year to year, it will start from year to year. Let me prove it for you. Let's make this guy blue. You see what I'm doing? I'm styling inline. I'm not styling yet. The reason why I'm styling inline is because I want to give this guy a special property apart from others. Another way to do it is to give it an ID and style the ID. So you should start with blue. I wrote color. I meant to write background color. Color is only used for text color, not this kind of color. You see, it's starting with blue because I use colon reverse. So when I change it back, it should end with blue. Exactly. Okay. Alright guys, let's continue. So number 3, you can set if to wrap it. What do I mean by wrap? Wrap means that it should go to a new line if there is no longer space in the current line. Let me show you something. So let's go back to our code and set our direction to horizontal row. And then we'll go ahead and duplicate these guys. So let's go back to this screen and refresh. You will see, okay, there's still space. So let's go ahead and copy again. Let's duplicate this and let's refresh. You can see that because it has reached the end, the flex stuff is squeezing it together. It's squeezing those things together because there's no more space at this side, at the extreme end. Let's see what will happen if we duplicate it again. Will it keep squeezing them? You see, it's still squeezing them together, just making sure they fit the stuff. But there's a property that allows you to tell you to go to a new line. It's called flex wrap. So you can set your flex wrap to wrap or no wrap. So let's go back to our code and then come all the way here. Now let's type the flex wrap and then let's set it to wrap. So when we go back to our stuff and refresh, it will go to a new line when it wraps, when it gets to the end of the current line. Alright, then that's cool. So let's continue. We can also divide the screen using flex. Use the flex property to divide the screen. This property is set on the children and it specifies the ratio of division. For example, we have something like this. Let me go ahead and put this in a separate container. Let's hide this and put this in a separate container. I should call this guy count again. So let me change the count of this guy to count 1. So stay on the same page. And then to divide it into different parts, we can use this CSS. First, we divide the count to be a flex display. That's the first thing you need to do. Divide it to be a flex display. Then we divide the width. You'll be wondering that here we didn't divide the width, but here we divide the width. When you want to divide the screen, our goal is to divide the screen into 1, 2, 3, and maybe 4. When you want to divide the screen, maybe horizontally and vertical, if you are dividing horizontal, specify the width of your container. Let's see what happens if we don't specify the width. So let's come back here and then come and align with these guys. C1, C2, C3. Okay. So we came here and divided something, right? Look at what I did there. What did I do here? Comma between styles. That's multi-styling. I hope you remember that. That's multi-styling. Multi-styling let me add the same style to multiple tags. And then after multi-styling them, I came back to style them individually. It's because I needed to multi-style them because they all need to have the same height. Now, you will notice that for the children, C1, C2, C3, I didn't set a width. That's because our goal, remember, is to create a container that fills the screen width of the screen using 100 VW, that's the viewport width, and then create children that divides that width into ratio of 1:1:1. So it divides the screen into 3 parts. I won't need to specify a width for these children because the children using this flex property will know that they are supposed to divide this width into 3. So if you divide 100 by 3, what will you get? You should get around that 33. So they should all have around that 33 pixels width. But I specified their height because I need to specify their height or else they won't show. So let's go ahead and copy this and see how that's going to run. Let's bring it here. Alright, there's nothing showing. Well, it's not showing because I didn't give these guys any background, so why would they show? So let's give them a background of blue. You can see that. So just to differentiate them, let me give them different background, right? So let's give the first one a background color of blue. Let me give the second one a background color of red. Now let's make it let's see what cool color do we have here. Let's make it green. And let's give this guy a background color of let's use fuchsia. Fuchsia. Okay, so let's go ahead and go back to our code and refresh. You can see that now it has divided the screen equally into 3. So I don't even need to specify the width of the container, it already knows. But in some cases, I would strongly advise you specify the width of the container. before you divide the screen. So this way I can divide the screen into 3 and do one of those things that you do on a landing page of a website, where there's a picture here and then there's a text here, or maybe there's a picture here and then there's a text here. Let me show you something very quickly on TouchNote website. Right, so I want to show you some things so you can tell me how they built that website. I mean, you guys, by the end of the time I finish this CSS course, you should be able to develop websites. Although we should practice this thing, I'm just brushing through something that is very voluminous very quickly, just to teach you the basics. I'm thinking of holding another session with you guys, maybe a live session or something like that, where we where we build cool stuff, cool websites. But for now, I just want to go through this course and make sure we are on time. So let's go to TouchNote website and I'll show you what. Look at this TouchNote website now. You will notice something. How did they build this thing? What they did is kind of simple. What they did is kind of simple. They divided this screen into two. One part they give to the video, the other part they give to the text, which is kind of cool, by the way, if you ask me. And then look at what they did. We made this for you. Now, in contrast to this particular kind of design where they gave this guy ratio 1:1, let's inspect it just to prove it to you. It's a responsive design. It went to the new line. Don't worry, I'll teach you responsive design at the end of this stuff. Alright then. So if you inspect it, you notice. Look at this. This is one ratio and this is another ratio. So they divided this container into ratio 1:1. And then you can check this next one. This next one is kind of different. It's not ratio 1:1. It's not like ratio 1:2. You notice that they give this guy 1 and they give this guy 2. Let me show you how to do that. So let's come back here and remove C3. So when we remove C3, let's not just remove it outrightly like that. Let's just comment it out. Comment C3 out with Ctrl//. Then comment the style out too. Then come here and change this flex to 2. So basically we are giving C2 a flex of 2 and C1 a flex of 1. So that's 1:2. So C2 should be bigger. You see, that is exactly what was done here. So they gave this blue part to the image and they gave this green part to these other guys. And then everything here is flexbox horizontally and flexbox vertically. This is the vertical flexbox. And then you see, I'm pretty sure that you guys, campers, I know you can design this website from scratch. In fact, I think I should give you the assignment to design this website from scratch. And you see what they did here. You can see what they did here. You guys can do this thing, except this over thing. I'm going to teach you this over. Don't worry about that. Have I taught you over? Oh, I've not taught you over. Okay, let me add that to our scheme. All right. Okay. All right. So let's continue then. So I hope you guys understand what I just explained to you in the part of dividing the screen. Alright then, let's continue. Alright, another thing you can do with the flexbox, you should specify how the children should be aligned. There are two directions to this. First, alignment in the direction of the container orientation, which is this. When you are defining how the children of a flexbox should be aligned, there are two properties you need to know. First, align items. The second is justify content. Align items, you align in the direction of the container direction. So assuming your container is set to be in row horizontally, align items will make sure the children are aligned in this particular direction. Let me demonstrate it for you so we're not just talking. Alright, so I think we should probably, we can still manage this stuff. Should we create a new example? No, let's go ahead and use the same one. So let's create a new container. Let's call it CN, and then let's bring a couple of these boxes, from this other guy, a a couple of these C boxes, and then let's just bring the boxes in, and then let's go and check our code. Okay, yeah, CN was vertical, probably because we did not set the what's it called? We didn't style CN. Let's group all our styling that has to do with container at the top. You should learn how to organize your CSS code very well, or else it's going to be very frustrating to read. So when you're coding with CSS, make sure you group all the things you're coding to one place. So from here now, I can know that this is the container, this is not a container. So let me bring it here out of here. Let me bring it here. So I know that the containers end here. Then this one is, I know that these are containers. And then we have this. Alright. So CN is not display flex. So let's see how it's going to be. Horizontal. So the question is, what happens when we add, let's give it a flex wrap just in case it gets it. No, let's continue. What happens when we make one of these boxes big? How can we do that? Well, let's use ID so everything is easier for us. We use ID, things should be a lot easier. Okay, I have some messages. Alright, so let's use ID and let's call the ID U. So let's come back here and style that particular guy. U. Let's make his width a little bit bigger than all of them. Let's make it 120 pixels. Let's make the height 120 pixels. And then let's make the other radius half of that. That's 60. And then that should do it. You will take the background color of red because it's also a C class, but it's just UID. I hope you understand that. Alright, then it's big. But you notice something with this guy. You know what? Let's go back and create someone else like him. Let's put someone else like him here. So let's come here and then refresh. And you will notice something about this. You know what? Sorry, I just want to create some kind of a distinction between them. So let's make his own background color different. Let's make it blue. And you can see the stuffs they are not centered, right? Now let's go back to our course material. There are two ways to align something. Before we continue, let me get rid of some of these things so that I can be able to explain the other kind of property well. You can see there are two ways to align things. Either you are aligning in the direction of your container. What's the direction of this container horizontal? So we can align the children to stay in a particular alignment. I will explain what that means. Or you can align in the vertical direction. So let's go back to our material. So there are different kinds of alignment in CSS. The most common one are center, flex start, and flex end. If you have a vertical container, flex start will just take all your children and put them to the left. But if you have an horizontal container, it will give them to the top. So I imagine that you know that this container is what? Flex start. You put them to the top. So when I say flex end, it should bring the children to the bottom. So let's go and set the alignment. Come to the container, which is CN. So let's set align items. Then let's say flex end. So when you go back to your stuff, refresh, it brings them to the bottom. But if we say flex, if we don't say flex start or flex end, and we say center, it should bring them to the center. Voila, we have this. It brought them to the center, which is kind of cool if you ask me. And then there's also for example, I just did an example here just to describe to you. There's also justify content. Justify content, instead of aligning in the horizontal direction, it will align in the vertical direction. But if your container was vertical, it will align in the horizontal direction. So let's deal with justify content. But before we do that, let me first okay. So let's go ahead and use justify content. Currently, the justify content is set to start because if I draw a line to the vertical, start is to the left and end is to the right. So come here and type justify content. And let's say center. So it should bring all our guys to the center. You see, it brought it to the center. But I would like to explain this thing to you in a more detailed way, apart from just putting it on this like this, because this is not very explanative in my own opinion. So let's bring these guys here. Let's get rid of these guys. Now we have this. Our goal is to actually make get a bigger workspace so we can work more effectively. Alright then, so let's copy the part. Yeah, so I want to explain what flex start and justify align item and justify content can do for you. First of all, we want to make the width of this container to be full screen, both height and both width and height. But I told you initially when you first create your website, body is not going to have a full screen height. It's just going to have a very small height. Let me show you. Go and inspect your code with Ctrl Shift I. Then come here and you see this is your body. You can see that your body is not full screen yet. So let's fix that. Come to body and set the margin. Don't forget, it always has some kind of a weird margin that is causing where it stops. Then let's set the width. Let's set it to 100, the screen width. And let's set the height to 100, the screen height. So it should be full screen now. It's full screen now. Okay then. So let's go back and explain what align items does. By default, align items is set to flex start, and justify content is set to flex start. Now, what's the direction of our container by default? We are using a display of flex, so by default the container is row, or you can just write the flex direction property and use row, and row mix horizontally. So you notice it's here, it's staying at this point of the website. At this point, that's because flex starts for align items align things in the direction of the container. The direction of the container is row, and flex start is top for that, and the flex start is top of the row. But if I change it to flex end, it's going to be bottom. But justify content aligns something in the opposite direction of if the container is horizontal, justify content to align the thing vertical. If the container is vertical, justify content to align the thing horizontal. So let's see. Justify content starts. If I draw a vertical line on my screen like this, it's putting it at the left side. If I say end, it should put it at the right side. So let's experiment with that. What happens when we change align items to flex end? You should bring it to the bottom. Exactly. You see, it brought it to the bottom, and then our flex is not free to move. That's because our container doesn't have the full height of the screen. So let's give it the full height of the screen. Let's make that 100%. It should occupy whatever is available for him to occupy. Alright, so we have been able to set the align items to flex